If you clicked on this video, you're probably wondering about earnest money, an earnest money deposit. What in the world is that? Is it something that's absolutely required? Who do you give it to? How much do you put down? And all the ins and outs of earnest money. So this is a common question that I get all the time with my email subscribers, with YouTube subscribers, with you guys watching here, as well as my coaching students. They're wondering, how does earnest money work? And when I do an initial strategy call with those coaching clients, that's a lot of times a big question that they have. So if you, my friend, are wondering about earnest money, this video is definitely going to be for you. We're going to talk all about earnest money so that you can act with confidence and know exactly what you're doing and not have all these unanswered questions and fears, which then is going to show to the seller that you're talking with. So guys, welcome to the video. Stephen Howell here. Hope you're doing awesome. If you're new here, definitely feel free to browse some of the other playlists and videos on the channel. Be sure also to hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel if today's video resonates with you. We're rolling out 3 videos a week now. I'm here in my home office and we're having a ton of fun recording this content. I always like hearing from you, so I'd love to hear from you in the comments. I do take time to read every single comment myself and also reply. So if you have any additional video or content ideas or questions from this video, I definitely do want to hear from you. So what in the world is an earnest money deposit? So a lot of times it's referred to as EMD. That's kind of an industry term. And it's also referred to as a good faith deposit. So simply when you're making an offer on a property, it is just a little bit of good faith deposit to show the seller that you are serious as a buyer for that property. And you know, when people are just starting this real estate investing business, and in the wholesaling world, I know so many people say, oh, you can get started with little money and no money, and that's true. You can get started in real estate investing with very little money, but earnest money is one of those questions that comes up, like, you know, Stephen, I don't have thousands of dollars to put down for earnest money, or what happens if I lose my earnest money? And so I want to kind of shed some light on all of those things. So earnest money deposit, guys, is something that you are not, another big point is that you are not giving it directly to the seller. It is going to go with a title company or with a closing attorney. So that is a big thing. Never ever give the earnest money directly to the seller. It's always going to go to a third-party company, or like I said, a closing attorney if you're in a closing attorney state. And since we're kind of talking about closing and that side of the transaction as well when we speak of earnest money, another very closely related topic is the next video we're doing in this series, which I'll make sure to link up here. And that is going to be a video all about finding the right investor-friendly title company or closing attorney and all the ins and outs of that. So guys, if you have any questions about that, make sure to go ahead and save that video or watch it next. All right, so is earnest money legally required to be put down on a property? And there's 2 different ways to go about this. I want to break this into 2 categories. So if a property is listed with a real estate agent, if it's on market, we're going to handle this one way. And if it is an off-market property, meaning you're just really negotiating directly with the seller, there's a distressed situation going, it's not listed, there's a little bit different way that we handle this. And the answer is no, that earnest money is not legally required on a property. However, it is highly, highly, highly encouraged. So I want to make sure that you hear me very correctly here. It is something that is very much encouraged. So let me give you an example. If a property is listed on the MLS, then you will want to put down earnest money, because a real estate agent who is representing the seller is not even going to take your offer seriously, because it is a good faith deposit. It shows that you're basically ready to put your money where your mouth is, your feet to the fire. You are serious about putting some skin in the game in the transaction, and the real estate agent is not going to take it seriously to the seller if you are not putting up earnest money deposit. And on market properties, the rule of thumb is right around 1% for earnest money. So if it's a $100,000 house, you're putting down $1,000 earnest money. Now with wholesaling real estate, just know that if you are going after an on market deal, meaning that it's listed on the MLS, you are going to want to put down earnest money, whether that's $500, $1,000, $1,500. It's going to depend on the purchase price. So if you're over $100,000 on the home, you can kind of leverage that 1% rule. You can be a little bit under 1%. It's not an absolutely hard and fast rule, but it is something to give you your bearings. So even putting down $1,000 is going to be something that gives you strong consideration. It also depends on where your market is. Are you in the Midwest like I am here in Ohio? Or are you in California or a market where the average house price is $500,000? In those markets, you're going to want to put down a higher amount of earnest money. And again, especially if it's an on-market deal. However, with what we're doing with wholesaling houses and wholesaling real estate, we are focusing a lot of the times on distressed off-market properties. Now, I know it's gained a little bit of traction where some folks are focused on wholesaling deals on the MLS, and that can be done. But in my opinion, there's a lot of resistance there. There's a lot of different hoops to jump through. And I've built the better part of my business over the last 10 years wholesaling properties that are off market. Now, when a property is off market, it's just basically you negotiating with the seller. So you could put down $10 as earnest money. You could put down $100, $250, $500, $1,000. You have a little bit more flexibility because you are just negotiating directly with the seller. And keep in mind, a lot of the properties that we're buying, there may be termite damage, foundation damage. The house may have a huge hole in the roof and water's been coming in for years. It may be a tear down property. So with these there may be stuff stacked to the ceilings. I've seen animal carcasses in properties, all sorts of stuff, right? So in these type of properties, it's really up to your discretion. It's always negotiable how much earnest money you put down. Now, there's going to be a lot of factors from the location in the US that you're in, like we talked about before. If you're in California or a market where the average house price is $500,000 or more, you're going to want to put down more earnest money. Whereas if there's a property here in Ohio that might be worth $150,000, but it's completely wrecked, and I'm getting it for $50,000, there might be a lot less earnest money that I'll put down on that, maybe $100, maybe $250. So it does depend on the location that you are in the country. It does depend on the price point. It does depend on competition. So one way for your offer to stand out, especially if it's a property that's in a good neighborhood, a good city in your area, and you know it's a hot deal, you can get it for a decent price, and there's a little bit of competition, there's a few other investors, that's going to be a situation where you don't necessarily want to come in and put $10 down earnest money. You would hate to lose a $25,000 wholesale deal over the fact that you're not willing to put down $500 or $250 or $1,000. So that's something to keep in mind as well when we're talking about earnest money deposits. So with those factors in mind, it's a good idea on off-market deals to definitely get in the habit of putting down earnest money. The four most common earnest money amounts that I personally use are $100, $250, $500, and $1,000. And again, it's really factored on, is this property absolutely wrecked? What city, even in my own market, is it in a really, really hot area? Is it a really, really rundown area or house? Is there competition? How much confidence does the seller have in me? Are they very leery? Are they very pessimistic and just kind of fearful of the whole situation? In those situations, maybe I will come in and increase the amount of earnest money to $500 or $1,000 because I know this is a good deal and it's something that I can make $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So why would I want to risk the deal over that earnest money? Now, also something I want you guys to keep in mind is in any contract, you can make the earnest money. This is a powerful tip that I learned. You can make the earnest money due in 7 to 10 days after signing the contract. And that again is negotiable. You can give yourself 3 days, 4 days, 7 days, 10 days. to be able to put that earnest money down at the title company. So you do have a little bit of time to make those arrangements and get the earnest money down to the title company. Now, that brings us to the next and final point, which is basically, are you going to lose your earnest money? I know that's a common fear that people have. If we're making a lot of offers on properties and I'm shelling out earnest money here and there, am I going to lose this earnest money? Is it at risk? And I want to talk to you guys about how I do not lose earnest money and some good practices around that. All right, so the way this is structured to not lose your earnest money, this is super, super important, is you got to remember on these transactions, there is an inspection period in the contract. So in any purchase contract that we're using for wholesaling real estate, there's going to be a good inspection contingency in there. And so number one, structuring it in a way that you have 3, 4, 7, 10, even 14 days to be able to put that earnest money down at the title or escrow company of your choosing. And again, for more information about how to go find that for more information about finding that investor-friendly title company, be sure to check the next video in this series. But the earnest money is going to be put down at the title company, and there's an inspection period in the contract. So, will you lose your earnest money? And the answer is no. Very rarely should you ever lose your earnest money. If you're doing right by the seller, you should not have any fear of losing your earnest money. And guys, putting earnest money down on a contract or on a property is a very, very good habit to get into. And if the seller were to ever get cold feet or to back out or want to back out of the contract, and if that ever went to court, it does show that you did have a sincere interest in buying that property. You did put that earnest money down, and you do have a case to stand by. Whereas if you put $10 down or you don't put any earnest money down, you have less of a case to stand on. Although that brings a whole other topic into view, which is, if a seller's backing out of a contract. I don't want you guys to operate in fear or anything like that, but just know that it's a good habit to get into to put down earnest money. And if you're a little bit worried about cash out of pocket, guys, remember that in most instances when you're working with these off-market deals, you're putting down $250, $500, $1,000. And so if you have 2 contracts out at a time, you might have $500 out. You might have $1,000 out. But guys, these are assets. The contract, we have equitable interest in a contract that we're assigning to an end buyer and making $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So the fact that we are treating this as a business, that we have skin in the game, is a good thing. So don't let earnest money scare you or freak you out or anything like that. The other thing to remember, as with that whole thought in mind of a little extra cash out of pocket, like I said, a lot of times it's $500 or $1,000 out if you have multiple contracts going at a time. But that's a good thing, because if you have really good deals in the first place, you're going to have a very large payday coming your way in the next week or two anyways. The other thing I want you to remember is that when we are assigning that contract, the end buyer that is taking over that contract, we do require an earnest money deposit from them, as well as the title company, to the tune of $3,000 to $5,000, because they are the cash buyer who has liquid cash available to close in the next 7 to 10 calendar days. And so we always require a hefty earnest money deposit for that buyer to get this deal on a silver platter. So if something ever did happen with the earnest money, you also have, and let's say the buyer doesn't perform, we're going to be able to keep the buyer's earnest money. So now you have an extra $3,000 to $5,000 there if for some reason the buyer did not perform on their side of things. So you are going to have extra cash coming into the business when you are assigning that contract from the buyer's side as well. Now, their earnest money, as they fulfill the transaction, is going to go towards the sale. So Anyways, guys, I wanted to let you know kind of how that cash flow side of things worked as well. I hope that this video on earnest money sheds some light so that you can act with more confidence and not have to worry about earnest money. Guys, I have a ton of fun recording these videos, and if you are struggling with what to offer on properties and the whole offering process and analyzing properties, let me know in the comments, and maybe that's a future video series that we can do. But if you want some extra guidance and hand-holding and a clearly defined implementation plan, then go ahead and check out the link in the description, and you can apply to be part of the mentoring program where we go into extreme detail on how to make these offers, how to structure things the right way. And that may be something that gives you that extra hand-holding that you're looking for, because second guessing and going at this business alone is one of the longest and hardest roads to success. So guys, enjoyed this video. If you got a lot of value out of this video, definitely go ahead and smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel here and hit the notification bell. We're now publishing 3 times a week. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And that's all. I'll see you in the next video.